Sarah Chun had seen enough war zones to know when something felt different. The morning air in the mountains of Afghanistan carried more than just the usual tension. Her camera equipment felt heavier as she adjusted the lens settings, preparing for another day of documenting the ongoing conflict between coalition forces and insurgent groups. The assignment seemed straightforward enough. His weathered face showed the strain of losing good soldiers to an enemy they couldn't locate. "Ms. Chun, I'll be honest with you," Rodriguez said as they walked toward the command center. "This sniper has us spooked. We've lost 6 men in the past 2 weeks, all clean headshots from extreme range. Our best estimate puts the shooter somewhere between 800 and 1,200 meters out, but we can't pin down the exact location." Sarah nodded, already mentally composing the story. She had covered similar situations before, where highly skilled enemy snipers terrorized coalition forces. What made this case unusual was the precision and consistency of the attacks. "Have you identified the shooter?" she asked, pulling out her digital recorder. "That's the strange part," Rodriguez replied. "Intelligence suggests it might be a foreign fighter, possibly Chechen or European. The shooting is too precise for local militia. We're talking about shots that would challenge Olympic marksmen executed under combat conditions." As they toured the base, Sarah met several soldiers who had witnessed the attacks. Sergeant First Class Mike Thompson, a veteran of 3 deployments, described the psychological impact. "It's not just the accuracy," Thompson explained. "It's like this guy can read our movements before we make them. Yesterday, Private Jackson was moving between buildings, staying low, following all protocols. 1 second he was there, next second he was down. Single shot, no follow-up. Professional work." Sarah spent the first day interviewing soldiers and commanders, building background for her story. She learned that the base had requested additional sniper teams and reconnaissance assets to counter the threat. Counter-sniper operations had failed to locate the shooter's position despite using thermal imaging and aerial surveillance. The next morning, Sarah prepared to accompany a patrol that would venture beyond the base perimeter. The soldiers were tasked with investigating a suspected weapons cache in a village 3 kilometers away. Intelligence reports suggested the cache might be connected to the sniper attacks. Captain David Walsh led the 12-man patrol. He was a West Point graduate on his 2nd combat deployment, known for his methodical approach to dangerous missions. Before departing, he briefed his team on the route, contingency plans, and rules of engagement. "Remember, we have a journalist with us today," Walsh told his soldiers. "Ms. Chun will stay close to the command element, but everyone needs to maintain awareness. This sniper has been active in this sector." Sarah checked her camera equipment one final time. Her primary camera was a professional-grade DSLR with a telephoto lens capable of capturing detailed images from safe distances. She also carried a backup camera and several spare batteries. Documentation of military operations required careful preparation and redundant systems. The patrol moved out through the base gates just after sunrise. The terrain consisted of rocky hills covered with sparse vegetation, providing numerous concealment opportunities for both friendly forces and potential threats. Sarah stayed close to Captain Walsh, photographing the soldiers as they maintained tactical spacing and practiced proper movement techniques. After an hour of careful movement, the patrol reached a ridgeline overlooking the target village. Through binoculars, they could observe daily life continuing normally below. Children played in dusty streets, while adults conducted morning routines. Nothing appeared suspicious or threatening. Captain Walsh ordered his team to establish observation posts while he coordinated with headquarters via radio. Sarah used the opportunity to photograph the soldiers as they prepared their equipment and scanned for threats. The images would help illustrate the constant vigilance required in a combat environment. "Base, this is Viper 6. Walsh spoke into his radio handset. "We have eyes on the village. No apparent hostile activity. Requesting permission to proceed with search operations." The radio crackled with the reply. "Viper 6, you are cleared to proceed. Be advised, drone surveillance shows no movement in your sector, but maintain caution. Unknown sniper, still unlocated." As the patrol prepared to move toward the village, Sarah noticed something wrong with her primary camera. The display screen flickered and went black. She pressed various buttons, but the camera remained unresponsive. Years of experience had taught her that equipment failures always happened at the worst possible moments. "Problem with your gear?" asked Sergeant Thompson, who had noticed her frustrated expression. "Camera's dead," Sarah replied, pulling out her backup device. "Good thing I always carry spares." The backup camera was older and less sophisticated than her primary equipment. It lacked the advanced autofocus system and high-resolution sensor she preferred for professional work. However, it would serve adequately for basic documentation purposes. The patrol began descending toward the village when Sergeant Thompson suddenly raised his hand, signaling everyone to freeze. He had spotted movement on a distant hillside, approximately 1,000 meters to the northeast. "Contact, possible sniper position," Thompson whispered into his radio microphone. "Grid reference 41, RQQ 123-456, hillside with scattered rocks." Captain Walsh immediately ordered his team to seek cover behind available terrain features. Sarah crouched behind a large boulder, her backup camera ready. She could hear the soldiers coordinating their response through hushed radio communications. "Base, this is Viper 6. Possible sniper contact at Grid 41, RQQ 123-456. Requesting immediate drone surveillance of that location." Through her camera's viewfinder, Sarah scanned the distant hillside where Thompson had spotted movement. The landscape appeared empty except for rocks and scrub vegetation. If an enemy sniper was positioned there, he was well concealed. Minutes passed without incident. The soldiers remained motionless, waiting for additional intelligence or confirmation of the threat. Sarah continued observing through her camera, hoping to capture images that might reveal the sniper's position. Suddenly, the radio erupted with urgent traffic from the base. All call signs, be advised we have lost drone contact. Unknown technical malfunction. You are operating without overhead surveillance until further notice." The loss of drone coverage meant the patrol was now vulnerable to attack without advance warning. Captain Walsh faced a difficult decision: continue the mission with degraded intelligence support or abort and return to base empty-handed. "We proceed," Walsh decided after consulting with his senior non-commissioned officers. "Stay alert, maintain dispersed formation, and watch for anything unusual." The patrol resumed movement toward the village, but everyone remained on high alert. Sarah continued photographing their advance, though she found the backup camera's focusing system frustratingly slow compared to her usual equipment. As they reached the village outskirts, Sarah noticed an elderly man watching them from beside a mud brick house. He made no threatening moves, but observed their approach with obvious interest. Through her camera lens, she could see his weathered hands and deeply lined face. Something about the man's posture caught her attention. Unlike other villagers who typically showed fear or nervousness when armed soldiers appeared, this individual displayed calm confidence. His eyes moved systematically, evaluating each soldier's position and equipment with what appeared to be professional interest. Sarah adjusted her camera settings to capture better detail, despite the equipment's limitations. As she focused on the elderly man, she noticed subtle details that seemed inconsistent with his apparent age and civilian status. His stance suggested military training, and his hands showed calluses consistent with weapons handling. The backup camera's slower autofocus system forced Sarah to be more deliberate with each shot. As she waited for the lens to achieve sharp focus on the mysterious villager, she realized that the equipment failure might have been fortunate. The older camera's manual controls required her to pay closer attention to composition and timing. Captain Walsh signaled for the patrol to halt while he assessed the village layout. The weapons cache was reportedly hidden in a compound near the village center, but approaching it would require passing through narrow streets where soldiers would be vulnerable to ambush. Sarah continued observing the elderly man through her camera. His behavior remained unusual, too calm, too observant. Professional instincts developed through years of conflict photography told her this individual deserved closer attention. The morning sun climbed higher, casting harsh shadows across the village landscape. Sarah wiped perspiration from her forehead while maintaining visual contact with the suspicious villager. The backup camera felt unfamiliar in her hands, but she was beginning to adapt to its different controls and capabilities. Unknown to Sarah or the soldiers, they were about to witness something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their mysterious sniper problem. The elderly man disappeared into the shadows between buildings, moving with surprising agility for someone of his apparent age. Sarah lowered her camera, troubled by what she had observed. Years of photographing conflict had taught her to trust her instincts, and everything about that individual felt wrong. Captain Walsh led his patrol deeper into the village, following intelligence reports toward the suspected weapons cache location. The streets were narrow and dusty, lined with traditional Afghan compounds featuring high walls and heavy wooden gates. Perfect terrain for ambush, as every soldier understood. Sarah stayed close to the patrol's rear guard, continuing to document their movement through the village. The backup camera's sluggish performance frustrated her, but she adapted by anticipating shots rather than relying on quick reflexes. Each photograph required more patience and planning. Local children began appearing from various doorways and alleyways, drawn by curiosity despite their parents' obvious concern. The soldiers maintained professional discipline, acknowledging the children with small waves while keeping their weapons ready. These interactions would make compelling images for Sarah's eventual story. Viper 6, this is base, came the radio transmission. Drone surveillance is back online. We show your position in the village center. No hostile movement detected in your immediate area, but be advised of elevated activity 2 clicks northeast of your location. The northeast sector was the same general direction where Sergeant Thompson had spotted possible movement earlier. Captain Walsh acknowledged the transmission while continuing to lead his team toward their objective. The weapons cache was reportedly located in a compound just ahead. As they approached the target building, Sarah noticed the elderly man from earlier watching them from a rooftop approximately 200 meters away. He was no longer attempting to remain hidden, instead observing their operations with open interest. Through her camera viewfinder, she could see him clearly despite the distance. "Captain," she called quietly to Walsh. "That old man on the roof. I saw him earlier near the village entrance. He's been tracking our movement." Walsh raised his binoculars to examine the figure Sarah indicated. After several seconds of observation, he lowered the optics with a puzzled expression. "Probably just curious about foreign soldiers," Walsh said. "Local civilians often watch our operations. As long as he doesn't pose an immediate threat, we'll continue the mission." But Sarah wasn't convinced. Something about the man's behavior continued to bother her. She kept her camera trained on his position while the patrol prepared to search the target compound. The suspected weapons cache building was a typical Afghan family compound with high mud walls surrounding a central courtyard. Captain Walsh ordered his soldiers to surround the structure while he attempted to make contact with any occupants. Standard procedures required announcing their presence before conducting searches. "Salam alaikum," Walsh called out in accented Pashto. "Coalition forces. We need to search this building." No response came from within the compound. After waiting the prescribed amount of time, Walsh signaled for his team to breach the entrance gate. 2 soldiers used a portable ram to break the wooden barrier while others provided security. Sarah positioned herself to photograph the search operation while maintaining visual contact with the mysterious villager on the distant rooftop. The backup camera's manual focus ring required constant adjustment as she alternated between documenting the soldier's actions and monitoring the watching figure. Inside the compound, the soldiers discovered a family of 7 Afghan civilians hiding in their main living area. They showed no signs of hostility, only fear at the sudden appearance of armed foreign troops in their home. Captain Walsh immediately ordered his men to treat the family with respect while conducting their search. The children clung to their mother while the father attempted to answer Walsh's questions through interpreter. Yes, They had seen unusual activity in recent weeks. No, they were not involved with insurgent groups. Yes, they would cooperate fully with the search. Sarah documented the interaction between soldiers and civilians, aware that these images would be crucial for her story about the human cost of ongoing conflict. The backup camera's slower operation actually helped her capture more thoughtful compositions, though she still missed the responsiveness of her primary equipment. While half the patrol searched the compound's interior rooms, the other half maintained perimeter security. Sarah used this opportunity to check on the elderly villager's location. To her surprise, he was no longer visible on the rooftop where she had last seen him. "Sergeant Thompson," she called to the nearest soldier. "The old man who was watching us from that roof. Do you see him anywhere?" Thompson scanned the surrounding area with his rifle scope. "Negative. Don't see anyone up there now. Maybe he got bored and left." But Sarah's professional instincts suggested otherwise. The man hadn't appeared bored or casual. His attention had been too focused, too systematic. She continued scanning nearby rooftops and windows through her camera lens, searching for any sign of his current location. The weapons search revealed several interesting items, though nothing definitively connected to the sniper attacks. Soldiers found ammunition for hunting rifles, some old military equipment, and communication devices that could be used for either legitimate or hostile purposes. Captain Walsh decided to confiscate suspicious items while leaving the family's personal belongings untouched. As the search concluded, Sarah noticed unusual activity on a hillside approximately 800 meters northeast of the village. Through her camera's telephoto lens, she could barely make out movement among the rocks and vegetation. The distance was too great for clear identification, but something was definitely there. "Captain Walsh," she said, pointing toward the distant hillside. "There's movement on that ridge. Could be related to our sniper problem." Walsh examined the area through his binoculars, but couldn't confirm Sarah's observation. The distance and terrain made visual identification extremely difficult, even with military optics. "Base, this is Viper 6, Walsh transmitted. "Request drone surveillance of hillside at Grid 41, RQQ 135-468. Possible hostile activity." The response came quickly. "Viper 6, drone is repositioning to your requested location. Stand by for confirmation." While waiting for aerial reconnaissance, Sarah continued photographing the patrol's activities. The backup camera forced her to work more slowly and deliberately, but she was beginning to appreciate its different characteristics. The manual controls provided more creative flexibility once she adapted to its operation. The patrol prepared to return to base, having completed their primary mission. The weapons cache search had produced mixed results, suspicious items, but no definitive proof of insurgent activity. Captain Walsh was satisfied with their work, though the sniper threat remained unresolved. "Viper 6, this is base. Drone shows no hostile activity at your requested location. Hillside appears clear. You are cleared to return to base via Route Charlie." Sarah packed her camera equipment while the soldiers organized their formation for the return journey. The elderly villager remained nowhere to be seen, though she continued scanning for any sign of his presence. Her journalist instincts told her they hadn't seen the last of that mysterious individual. The patrol began moving back through the village, retracing their earlier route with appropriate security measures. Local civilians watched their departure from doorways and windows, showing the same mixture of curiosity and wariness that Sarah had observed in countless other war zones. As they reached the village outskirts, Sarah suddenly spotted the elderly man again. He was positioned near a stone wall approximately 300 meters away, partially concealed but clearly observing their movement. This time, something about his posture triggered a memory from her extensive experience covering military conflicts. She had seen that specific stance before, the way he held his shoulders, how his head was positioned, the calculated way he observed the patrol's movement. It was the posture of someone with advanced military training, someone accustomed to long-range observation and target assessment. "Sergeant Thompson," Sarah called urgently. "That old man by the stone wall. There's something military about the way he carries himself." Thompson focused his rifle scope on the indicated location. I see him. You're right. Something does seem off about his positioning. Too professional for a civilian. Before Thompson could relay his observations to Captain Walsh, the radio erupted with urgent traffic. Viper 6. Viper 6. Sniper contact. Shots fired at Grid 41 are QQ 140-470. Coalition forces taking accurate fire. The grid coordinates placed the sniper attack less than 1 kilometer from their current position. Sarah realized they were probably hearing the same mysterious marksman who had been terrorizing the base. The timing suggested the attacks might be coordinated with their patrol movements. Captain Walsh immediately ordered his team to seek cover and prepare for possible engagement. Sarah crouched behind available terrain while keeping her camera ready. If the legendary sniper was operating nearby, she might have a chance to document evidence of his activities. As the soldiers established defensive positions, Sarah noticed that the elderly villager had vanished again. The stone wall where he had been standing now appeared empty. His ability to appear and disappear so quickly was beginning to seem less like civilian behavior and more like professional tradecraft. The radio continued crackling with updates from the attack unit. Base, we have 1 friendly wounded, not life-threatening. Shooter appears to have displaced immediately after engagement. No follow-up shots. Sarah felt pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to align in her mind. The elderly man's military bearing, his systematic observation of their patrol, his convenient disappearances coinciding with radio traffic about sniper attacks. The pattern was too consistent to be coincidental. As the patrol prepared to move toward base, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Instead of simply documenting the soldiers' activities, she would begin actively investigating the mysterious villager. Her backup camera might have failed at documenting military operations, but it might prove perfect for a very different kind of story. The return journey to base took longer than expected due to increased security measures following the sniper attack. Captain Walsh ordered frequent stops to scan for threats, while headquarters coordinated additional aerial surveillance over their route. Sarah used each halt to search for signs of the mysterious elderly villager. Her persistence paid off during the 3rd security stop. While the soldiers scanned potential threat areas, Sarah spotted the man again, this time positioned on a different hillside, nearly 600 meters away. Through her camera's telephoto lens, she watched him observing their patrol with the same systematic attention she had noticed earlier. What struck her as remarkable was his ability to move between observation points without being detected by trained military personnel. The distance he had covered in the time between sightings would have challenged soldiers half his apparent age, especially across the rough Afghan terrain. Sarah began photographing the figure, despite the backup camera's focusing difficulties at extreme range. The manual controls forced her to bracket her exposures, taking multiple shots with slightly different settings to ensure at least some would be usable. Professional photography required such contingency planning. "Sergeant Thompson," she whispered, "he's back. Same old man, different position. 600 meters northeast, on the ridge with 3 large boulders." Thompson adjusted his rifle scope to examine the indicated location. After several seconds of careful observation, he lowered his weapon with a puzzled expression. "I can barely make out someone there, but you're right, it's the same guy. How'd he get to that position so quickly? We've only been stopped for 10 minutes. The question bothered Sarah as well. The terrain between the man's previous location and his current position included steep slopes and rocky ground that would slow even experienced hikers. His rapid repositioning suggested either exceptional physical conditioning or intimate knowledge of the local landscape. Captain Walsh ordered the patrol to resume movement, unaware of Sarah's growing suspicions about their persistent observer. The soldiers maintained tactical spacing while advancing toward the base perimeter, following established routes designed to minimize exposure to potential threats. During the movement, Sarah noticed something that made her heart race. As she photographed the surrounding terrain through her telephoto lens, she spotted what appeared to be a carefully camouflaged shooting position on a distant hillside. The location offered commanding views of multiple approach routes to the base. The position showed signs of recent use, disturbed vegetation, small equipment caches, and sight lines that had been carefully cleared. Most tellingly, the location was positioned at exactly the range described by base personnel for the sniper attacks, approximately 1,000 meters from high-traffic areas. Sarah quickly photographed the position, grateful for the backup camera's manual controls that allowed precise exposure settings. The images might not have the technical quality of her primary equipment, but they could provide crucial evidence about the sniper's methods and capabilities. "Captain Walsh," she called quietly, "I found what might be a sniper hide. Grid approximately 41, RQQ 127-451, on the hillside with a dead tree." Walsh examined the area through his binoculars while Sarah showed him the images on her camera's display screen. Even on the small LCD monitor, the camouflage position was clearly visible once someone knew what to look for. "Outstanding work," Walsh said. "That's definitely a prepared position. Base, this is Viper 6. We have located a possible sniper hide at Grid 41, RQQ 127-451. Requesting explosive ordnance disposal team and crime scene investigation." The discovery energized the entire patrol. Soldiers who had been operating under the psychological pressure of an invisible threat now had concrete evidence of their enemy's methods. The find also validated their unit's tactical procedures and confirmed that their defensive measures had been appropriate. As they continued toward base, Sarah maintained surveillance of both the suspected sniper position and the mysterious villager's last known location. Her dual focus was challenging with the slower backup camera, but professional experience helped her manage multiple priorities simultaneously. The elderly man appeared once more during their approach to the base perimeter. This time, he was positioned much closer, only 300 meters away, and seemed less concerned about concealment. Through her camera lens, Sarah could observe details that had been impossible at greater distances. His clothing appeared to be typical Afghan civilian attire. Traditional loose-fitting garments, worn boots, and a pakal hat common among local men. However, his equipment told a different story. Sarah could identify what appeared to be military-grade binoculars and possibly a laser rangefinder among his possessions. More importantly, she noticed his hands. Despite his apparently advanced age, his fingers showed no signs of the arthritis or stiffness common among elderly villagers. Instead, his grip on his observation equipment demonstrated the steady control associated with professional marksmen. "This is incredible," Sarah muttered to herself, adjusting her camera settings to capture clearer images. "He's right there, practically posing for photographs." Sergeant Thompson overheard her comment and moved to observe the same target. Through his rifle scope, he could confirm Sarah's observations about the man's equipment and bearing. "Ma'am, I think you're onto something significant," Thompson said. "That individual is definitely not what he appears to be. Should I report him as a possible threat?" Sarah considered the implications of Thompson's question. If soldiers identified the elderly man as a potential hostile target, they might engage him immediately. Such action could be justified under rules of engagement, but it would also eliminate any opportunity to gather intelligence about his true identity and objectives. "Wait," Sarah said. "Let me get more documentation first. If he's actually the sniper everyone's looking for, we need proof before taking action." Thompson nodded, but kept his weapon ready while Sarah continued photographing. The backup camera's manual focus system actually proved advantageous for this type of surveillance work, allowing her to maintain focus on the target while making subtle adjustments for changing light conditions. As they reached the base outer perimeter, Sarah made a startling discovery. While reviewing images on her camera's display screen, she noticed something that had been invisible to the naked eye. In the background of one photograph showing the suspected sniper position, she could clearly see the elderly villager. The image proved he had been present at the prepared shooting site, contradicting the assumption that he was simply a curious civilian observer. The photographic evidence suggested a direct connection between the mysterious man and the sniper attacks that had terrorized the base. "Captain Walsh," Sarah said urgently, "you need to see this photograph. The old man we've been watching, he's connected to the sniper position." Walsh examined the camera's display screen, studying the image that showed both the camouflaged hide and the distant figure. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling, particularly given the man's consistent presence during their patrol. "Base, this is Viper 6, Walsh transmitted. We have possible identification of sniper suspect. Elderly male, Afghan civilian clothing, currently observing our position from 300 meters northeast of Checkpoint Charlie." The response was immediate. "Viper 6, maintain visual contact, but do not engage unless fired upon. Counterintelligence team is moving to your location for assessment." Sarah continued documenting the elderly man's behavior while they waited for the counterintelligence specialists. Her backup camera was proving surprisingly effective for surveillance photography, despite its limitations for fast action shots. The man seemed aware that he was being observed, but showed no signs of concern or urgency to escape. His confidence suggested either complete innocence or absolute certainty in his ability to evade capture. Given the evidence Sarah had collected, innocence seemed increasingly unlikely. As the counterintelligence team arrived at the patrol's position, Sarah realized she was about to witness the resolution of a mystery that had terrorized an entire military base. Her camera failure had inadvertently led to one of the most significant discoveries of her journalistic career. The team leader, Major Patricia Harrison, was a specialist in identifying and tracking high-value targets. She examined Sarah's photographs on a tablet computer while coordinating surveillance assets to maintain contact with the suspected sniper. "Excellent work, Ms. Chun," Harrison said. "These images provide exactly the type of evidence we need for positive identification. If this individual is indeed our sniper, he's been extraordinarily bold to operate so openly." Sarah felt a mixture of professional satisfaction and growing apprehension. The story was developing beyond her original assignment, but the potential consequences for all involved were becoming more serious with each discovery. The elderly villager remained in position, apparently unconcerned by the increased military activity around him. His behavior was becoming more puzzling rather than less, suggesting layers of complexity that Sarah had not yet uncovered. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the Afghan landscape, Sarah prepared to document what might be the climactic confrontation between coalition forces and their elusive enemy. Her backup camera would have to capture images that could define both her career and the resolution of a deadly mystery. Major Harrison deployed her counterintelligence team with military precision, positioning observers to maintain visual contact with the suspicious villager while preparing for a careful approach. Sarah was granted permission to document the operation, provided she remained with the command element and followed all safety protocols. Through her telephoto lens, Sarah watched the elderly man's reaction to the increased military activity. Rather than showing concern or attempting to flee, he appeared to be calmly assessing the soldiers' positions and movements. His behavior was that of someone evaluating a tactical situation rather than a civilian caught in a dangerous circumstance. "Target is maintaining position," reported Staff Sergeant Rodriguez through his radio headset. No signs of weapons or hostile intent, but his observation methods are consistent with professional surveillance techniques. Major Harrison nodded while studying real-time imagery from overhead drones. The aerial perspective revealed details invisible from ground level, including what appeared to be carefully prepared escape routes and concealed equipment caches in the surrounding terrain. "Ms. Chun," Harrison said quietly, "your instincts about this individual appear to be correct. Drone surveillance shows evidence of extensive preparation in this area. Someone has been conducting long-term surveillance and probably target selection from multiple positions." Sarah continued photographing while processing the implications of Harrison's assessment. If the elderly villager was indeed the legendary sniper, his willingness to remain exposed suggested either supreme confidence in his abilities or some ulterior motive that hadn't yet become apparent. The counterintelligence team began a methodical approach, using terrain features to close distance while maintaining the appearance of routine patrol activities. Their movements were designed to avoid triggering flight responses while positioning assets for potential apprehension. As Sarah documented the team's advancement, something unexpected happened. The elderly man stood up from his position and began walking directly toward the soldiers, his hands clearly visible and making no threatening gestures. His approach was deliberate and unhurried, suggesting either surrender or confidence that he faced no real danger. All stations, Harrison transmitted, target is approaching our position voluntarily. Maintain ready positions, but hold fire unless directly threatened. This could be a surrender or a distraction for other activities. Sarah adjusted her camera settings to capture the unfolding drama. The backup camera's manual controls allowed her to prepare for rapidly changing light conditions as the afternoon sun created complex shadows across the landscape. The man walked steadily toward Major Harrison's position, maintaining a pace that demonstrated neither urgency nor reluctance. As he drew closer, Sarah could observe details that had been impossible at longer ranges. His face showed signs of advanced age, but his movements revealed physical conditioning inconsistent with his appearance. When he reached speaking distance, the elderly man addressed Major Harrison in accented English that surprised everyone present. His words were clear and precise, delivered with the confidence of someone accustomed to military interactions. "Major Harrison," he said calmly, "I believe you have questions about recent sniper activities in this area. I am prepared to provide information that may be useful for your investigation." The use of Harrison's rank and name shocked the assembled soldiers. Intelligence assessments had suggested local civilians possessed limited information about specific coalition personnel, yet this individual demonstrated detailed knowledge of military leadership. Harrison maintained professional composure while signaling her team to remain alert. "Sir, I need to inform you that you are suspected of involvement in attacks against coalition forces. You have the right to remain silent, and anything you say may be used as evidence." The elderly man nodded thoughtfully. "Major, I understand your concerns. However, I believe there has been a significant misunderstanding about recent events. I am not responsible for the attacks you are investigating." Sarah continued photographing the exchange while listening carefully to every word. The man's English vocabulary and sentence structure suggested extensive education and possibly military training. His demeanor remained calm despite being surrounded by armed soldiers. "Then, perhaps you can explain your presence at multiple sniper positions and your systematic observation of our patrol activities," Harrison replied. "We have photographic evidence placing you at prepared shooting sites." The elderly man smiled slightly. "Major, I have been conducting my own investigation of the sniper attacks. Like you, I am interested in identifying and stopping the individual responsible for killing coalition soldiers." This revelation stunned everyone within hearing range. Sarah nearly dropped her camera as she processed the implications of the man's statement. If true, it would completely reframe everything they had observed during the patrol. Harrison remained skeptical. "Sir, if you're conducting an investigation, why didn't you identify yourself to coalition forces? Your behavior has been consistent with hostile surveillance activities." "Because," the man replied, "the actual sniper has been monitoring coalition communications and would have been alerted to my presence if I had made contact through normal channels. I needed to maintain operational security to be effective." Major Harrison gestured for Sarah to continue documenting while she processed this unexpected development. The conversation was moving beyond routine apprehension into intelligence territory that could have significant operational implications. "What evidence do you have of this other sniper?" Harrison asked. The elderly man reached slowly into his clothing, moving deliberately to avoid triggering defensive reactions from the surrounding soldiers. He produced a small digital device that appeared to be a modified GPS unit with additional sensors. "This equipment has been recording electromagnetic signatures from advanced sniper systems," he explained. "The actual shooter is using technology that leaves detectable traces. I have been mapping his positions and movement patterns for the past 3 weeks. Sarah zoomed in to photograph the device, while Harrison examined it through binoculars. The equipment appeared sophisticated, possibly military-grade, and definitely not standard civilian technology. Major, the man continued, if you will permit me to demonstrate, I can show you the actual sniper's current position. He is approximately 1,500 meters northeast of here, preparing for another attack on your base perimeter. Harrison's radio immediately erupted with confirmatory intelligence. Viper Base, this is Overwatch. We have detected possible sniper signature at Grid 41, our QQ 156-489. Thermal imaging shows human presence in prepared position. The grid coordinates matched the elderly man's prediction with remarkable accuracy. Sarah photographed Harrison's surprised expression while realizing that the story was taking another dramatic turn. Sir, Harrison said, if your information is accurate, we need to coordinate immediate response. However, I still need to verify your identity and motivations before proceeding. The elderly man nodded understandingly. My name is Dmitry Volkov, formerly Colonel Dmitry Volkov of Soviet Spetsnaz forces. I served 3 tours in Afghanistan during the 1980s as a sniper instructor and counter-sniper specialist. Sarah's camera captured Harrison's shock at this revelation. A former Soviet Special Forces officer conducting independent operations in Afghanistan represented diplomatic and operational complications far beyond routine counterterrorism activities. Colonel Volkov, Harrison said carefully, what brings you back to Afghanistan after all these years? Volkov's expression grew serious. Major, the sniper you are hunting killed my grandson during an attack on a humanitarian convoy last month. The boy was working as a translator for a medical organization. I came here to find his killer and ensure justice is served. The personal motivation explained Volkov's presence and his willingness to operate independently of coalition forces. Sarah photographed his weathered hands as he spoke about his grandson, noting the barely controlled emotion beneath his professional demeanor. Colonel, if your intelligence is accurate and you can help us locate this sniper, we are prepared to coordinate joint operations, Harrison said. However, you must understand that any actions must comply with coalition rules of engagement. Volkov smiled grimly. Major, I've been hunting dangerous men for 40 years. I am quite familiar with proper procedures for neutralizing threats while minimizing civilian casualties. As Sarah continued documenting this extraordinary encounter, she realized her camera malfunction had led to discovering not just a legendary sniper, but a legendary sniper hunter. The backup camera had proven perfect for capturing a story that would challenge every assumption about the conflict she had come to cover. The afternoon sun was beginning to set across the Afghan mountains, and somewhere in the gathering shadows, a deadly game of cat and mouse was about to reach its conclusion. Major Harrison made the tactical decision to coordinate with Colonel Volkov rather than detain him pending further investigation. The intelligence he provided about the actual sniper's location was too valuable to ignore, especially with coalition forces remaining vulnerable to continued attacks. Colonel Volkov, Harrison said, I'm authorizing a joint operation under my direct supervision. You will provide intelligence and guidance, but all engagement decisions remain under coalition command authority. Volkov nodded his acceptance of the terms. Major, time is critical. The shooter's pattern suggests he will attempt another attack within the next 2 hours, probably targeting the evening patrol rotation. We must move quickly. Sarah received permission to document the joint operation, though Harrison emphasized the sensitivity of having a former Soviet Special Forces officer cooperating with coalition troops. The images would require careful review before any publication. The combined team moved toward the sniper's suspected position using Volkov's intelligence about terrain features and concealment opportunities. His knowledge of the local landscape proved invaluable as he guided them along routes that provided maximum cover while maintaining tactical mobility. During my previous service here, Volkov explained quietly, I spent months in these mountains training Afghan fighters in long-range marksmanship. I know every trail, every cave, every vantage point that could serve as a sniper hide. Sarah photographed the unlikely partnership between the elderly Russian colonel and American counterintelligence specialists. Her backup camera's manual controls allowed her to capture the dramatic lighting created by late afternoon shadows across the rocky terrain. As they approached the target area, Volkov's electromagnetic detection equipment began registering stronger signals. He studied the small display screen before pointing toward a specific cluster of boulders approximately 400 meters ahead. There, he whispered, active optical equipment, probably advanced scope with electronic range-finding capability. The signature matches patterns I recorded from previous attack positions. Major Harrison coordinated with aerial surveillance assets while positioning her team for optimal observation and potential engagement. The drone operators confirmed human presence at the indicated location, though positive identification remained impossible at current range. Through her telephoto lens, Sarah could barely distinguish the outline of what might be a concealed human figure among the rocks. The position offered commanding views of the coalition base and several approach routes used by regular patrols. Base, this is Harrison. We have probable sniper contact at Grid 41, RQQ 156-489. Requesting permission to engage if positive identification is confirmed. While waiting for authorization, Volkov demonstrated why Soviet Spetsnaz forces had earned their fearsome reputation. He identified subtle details about the sniper's position that had escaped notice by coalition observers, including backup positions and likely escape routes. This shooter is highly professional, Volkov assessed. Probably European or North American, based on equipment signatures and tactical methodology. Not local militia or standard insurgent fighter. Sarah documented Volkov's analysis while adjusting her camera settings for the changing light conditions. The dramatic interplay of shadows and golden afternoon sunlight across the Afghan landscape created compelling imagery to accompany her unprecedented story. The authorization for engagement arrived quickly. Harrison, you're cleared to engage hostile sniper target. Rules of engagement remain in effect. Minimize civilian casualties and collateral damage. What happened next demonstrated why Colonel Dmitry Volkov had survived 3 combat tours in some of the world's most dangerous territory. Instead of recommending immediate engagement, he proposed a tactical solution that would neutralize the threat while gathering maximum intelligence. Major, I recommend psychological pressure before kinetic action, Volkov suggested. If we can force him to relocate, we may capture him alive and determine his support network. Harrison considered the proposal while monitoring real-time intelligence feeds. Capturing a high-skilled foreign sniper would provide valuable counterterrorism intelligence, but the operation would also increase risk to coalition personnel. What did you have in mind, Colonel? Harrison asked. Volkov smiled with the confidence of someone who had spent decades outmaneuvering dangerous opponents. I will approach from his blind spot and make my presence known. Professional snipers rarely fight when they lose the advantage of concealment and surprise. The audacious plan involved Volkov using his extensive knowledge of the terrain to position himself where the enemy sniper couldn't engage without exposing his own location to coalition forces. Psychological warfare rather than direct confrontation. Sarah received permission to photograph the operation from safe distance while coalition forces provided overwatch and support. The backup camera's telephoto capability would be crucial for documenting events from beyond the effective range of sniper fire. Volkov began his approach using natural terrain features for concealment, moving with a fluidity that belied his apparent age. Sarah tracked his progress through her viewfinder, amazed by his tactical skills and physical conditioning. As Volkov closed distance to the sniper position, Sarah noticed activity among the rocks where the target was concealed. Through her camera lens, she could see what appeared to be equipment being repositioned, suggesting the sniper was aware of approaching danger. Movement in the target area, reported the drone operator. Individual appears to be preparing to displace from current position. Major Harrison coordinated her response team while maintaining communication with Volkov via secure radio. The psychological pressure was working exactly as the Russian colonel had predicted. Suddenly, Sarah heard Volkov's voice calling across the rocky landscape in heavily accented English. "American sniper, you are surrounded by coalition forces. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to international law." The response was immediate and shocking. Instead of surrendering or attempting to escape, the hidden figure opened fire, not at coalition forces, but directly at Volkov's position. The shots were precisely placed, indicating exceptional marksmanship skills, even under pressure. Volkov rolled behind cover as bullets struck the rocks near his position. His tactical assessment had been correct about the sniper's nationality and skill level, but he had underestimated the individual's willingness to fight against overwhelming odds. "All stations, shots fired." Harrison transmitted. "Target is actively engaging. Clear to return fire." Sarah documented the engagement through her camera while coalition forces coordinated their response. The backup camera's manual controls allowed her to maintain focus despite the adrenaline and chaos of active combat. The firefight was brief but intense. Coalition forces used superior numbers and positioning to suppress the sniper's fire, while Volkov maneuvered to cut off escape routes. Within minutes, the shooting stopped as suddenly as it had begun. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Harrison commanded. "Target is no longer responding." Moving to investigate, the combined team approached the sniper position with appropriate caution, discovering sophisticated equipment and evidence of long-term surveillance activities. Most importantly, they found the individual responsible for terrorizing the coalition base. The sniper was indeed a foreign national, as Volkov had predicted, a former military contractor from Eastern Europe who had been conducting freelance operations for insurgent groups. His equipment included advanced optics, electronic range-finding systems, and communication gear that explained his effectiveness against coalition forces. Sarah photographed the captured equipment, while Harrison coordinated with intelligence specialists. The successful operation represented a significant victory against a dangerous threat that had evaded detection for months. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the Afghan mountains, Sarah realized her equipment failure had led to one of the most remarkable stories of her career. The backup camera had proven perfect for documenting not just military operations, but the extraordinary partnership between former enemies united in pursuit of justice. Colonel Volkov stood quietly beside the captured sniper position, looking across the landscape where he had once fought against the same forces he had just assisted. His quest for justice for his grandson was complete, but the deeper implications of their cooperation would resonate far beyond this single operation. "Ms. Chun," Major Harrison said as they prepared to return to base, "I hope you understand the sensitivity of what you've documented today. This story could have significant diplomatic and operational implications." Sarah nodded while securing her equipment. The backup camera had captured images that would challenge conventional understanding of the Afghan conflict and demonstrate that even in warfare, shared humanity could overcome historical animosity. Her equipment failure had revealed a legendary sniper hunter whose greatest victory was not measured in enemy casualties, but in the coalition forces who would return safely to their families because of his actions. As they walked back toward the base perimeter, Sarah reflected on how professional setbacks sometimes led to unexpected opportunities. The story she would eventually write would be far different from her original assignment, but infinitely more compelling than anything she could have planned. Sometimes the most important truths were revealed not by sophisticated equipment, but by patient observation and the courage to see beyond surface appearances.